Principality of Monaco. Just hearing the name mentioned, your mind immediately goes to yachts, casinos, Formula One, and the lifestyle for the chosen few. But it's also a place much less exotic than the label non-European country might suggest. Just think that this microstate, the second smallest in the world after Vatican City, with just over 2 square kilometers of territory, owes its origins to a bold action back in 1297 when Francesco Grimaldi, of Genoese origins, conquered the fortress on the rock by distinguishing himself as a Franciscan monk, then opened the gates to his soldiers. This began the Grimaldi dynasty that has reigned for over 700 years. The great economic boom came starting in the mid-19th century, first with the opening of the Monte Carlo Casino, then with the strategic choice of abolished direct taxes, transforming this small strip of land into a luxury tourism destination and the magnet for international capital. But beyond the historical notes and luxury, there exists a normal life, that of those who, like me, decided to make this place their home. My adventure began with 800 euros in my pocket and a smart car sold to scrape them together, and an internship contract. And it began in the most chaotic and unpredictable way I could ever have imagined. Hi, and welcome back! A special welcome to those watching my content for the first time. I'm Federica, and this is the Effet Conté Lounge, a space I created for everyone curious about the Principality of Monaco, for those thinking about moving here or elsewhere to have an experience abroad, for those already living in the area but struggling to build a network, or simply for those who want to relax for a few minutes. In the upcoming videos, I'll tell you step by step about my journey, what I've built, and my daily life. But today, I want to start from the beginning, answering one of the questions I've been asked most often. But how did you end up here in Monaco? Good question. The truth is, I didn't wake up a morning and say, I'm going to live in the country of the super rich. No, the story is a bit more complicated, I would say. To answer, I need to jump back to 2019. I was a recent graduate in Rome. I really felt the need for a challenge. I had already done Erasmus and other study experiences abroad, but I wanted to try working outside Italy for real. The idea was to build myself maybe an international career. Despite having done 1,000 odd jobs, I couldn't find a real starting point, a full-time job. I must have sent hundreds of resumes, but in Italy I felt invisible. I'd do some interviews and it always ended the same way. There was always a better resource, someone with more experience than me. It was a frustrating vicious circle. So I started looking around, but I wanted to stay in Europe, close enough to home. I aimed for places where I could use the languages I used to speak or wanted to perfect. United Kingdom, Spain, France, and yes, even the Principality of Monaco, a place I had visited as tourist just over a year before. Sure, you could breathe luxury everywhere, but paradoxically, that wasn't what had stuck me. It had been an almost surreal cleanliness and a palpable sense of security. I'll tell you this anecdote that will make you smile. I was climbing toward the prince's palace and I saw a carabiner bend down to pick up the transparent plastic from a cigarette pack from the ground, then throw it in the trash. I don't know if this is normal where you live, but for me, raised in Rome, with the idea that public property is nobody's property, that scene was a revelation, an attention that fascinated me. So, partly for the challenge and partly for that image, I started sending resumes there too. It couldn't go worse than not being called in the end. And against all odds, various interviews came, and then finally I also had a positive response, an internship in project management. And there I really felt chosen, wanted, and if someone was telling me, okay, now let's see what you can do. So the challenge for me became exactly that, succeeding, me, a completely normal person, in carving out space for myself in a place known for being elitist. I saw myself a bit like a goldfish in a sea of sharks. Making it, for me, at the moment meant having an opportunity to prove my worth to myself first and then to the others. Now, I needed to find accommodation and scrape together some money. The only valuable thing I had was my little Smart, my first car, my independence on 4 wheels. Selling it, I felt like I was leaving a piece of my life to take on a new one. With those 800 euros in my pocket and some savings, on January 5th, 2020, I landed in Nice, where I had found a studio behind the central station. My internship in Monaco would start the next day, because Epiphany isn't a holiday here. The arrival was crazy. The winter sea, the sun on the Promenade des Anglais. I was electrified. I had a precise mental to-do list. Get the keys, go grocery shopping to feel immediately at home, unpack the suitcase, and choose the outfit for the first day. After getting the keys, I rushed to the supermarket. I wanted to fill the fridge and organize myself as an independent adult abroad. I wandered among the shelves, trying to familiarize myself with French brands and products. With a cart filled with pasta, coffee, and the first necessities, I arrive at the checkout, smiling and ready to pay. My heart stops. I was looking for my wallet. Nothing. A second time. Nothing. Then panic. I abandoned the cart there, under the annoyed gaze of the cashier, and ran home, praying I had left my wallet on the table. Nothing there either. The wallet had disappeared. With the cash, credit card, documents inside, everything. The first call in tears was to my mother, who tried to calm me with a mix of worry and loving resignation that only mothers have when they know they are powerless. Then to my father for practical solutions. The Italian Consulate closed, obviously. The only thing to do was to go to the police. With difficulty, with limping French, and in a state of agitation, I managed to explain the situation to the 2 officers who, after an initial bureaucratic approach, looked at me with some compassion and helped me fill out the report. It was 5 p.m. at that point. I called the landlady, begging her to lend me even just 10 euros for a pizza, but she replies, "I'm sorry, I'm not in Nice." Fantastic. I returned to that studio, still to be unpacked, and write the most humiliating email of my life to my future supervisor, explaining that I wouldn't be able to show up on the first day. What an embarrassment. I was exhausted, starving, without a penny, and with the feeling that my dream had already turned into a nightmare. Well, a new day. The next meeting I showed up at the consulate. I tell my misadventure, and faced with my destroyed face and the fact that I hadn't eaten in almost 36 hours, something wonderful happened. With that all-Italian hospitality, the employees offered me a slice of leftover panettone from the holidays and a coffee. And at that moment, it seemed like the best breakfast in the world. They set up an emergency appointment for the passport and explained that they could grant me a small loan. When the employee asked me, "How much do you need?" I, mortified, replied, "I don't know, maybe 50 euros, just for the train pass and something to eat." When they gave me 300, I felt like the richest person in the world. The day after, finally, I started my internship. And if I'm still here telling you about it today, it means that in the end, that first terrible day didn't cut short my journey. I'll summarize this whole story in one big lesson. Life is ready to give you all the satisfaction you want. It simply puts you in front of a test to overcome with determination, honesty, and respect, to test your suitability to unlock the next levels. That's all for today. Leave me your comments below to share your experience and thoughts with me. I'll read them all one by one because I want this lounge to truly be a place of sharing where all opinions will always be welcome as long as they are expressed with mutual respect. Thanks for watching until here. We'll see each other very soon again in our lounge for the next video. Bye!